Fatherhood isn't easy, but in Autismland, it's a journey like no other. Join Mark de Grasse as we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between of raising children on the autism spectrum. With real stories, practical advice, and a touch of humor, we're here to navigate this unique journey together. For dads navigating life on the autism spectrum, you're not alone.
Everyone, welcome to the Dads In Autismland podcast. I'm Mark de Grasse, your host, and we talk everything autism and fatherhood on this show. We try to give people an insight into what daily life is like, and especially connect dads that are going through the journey of raising kids with autism, which isn't usually addressed by a lot of other brands. We like to talk about it. Today I have a special guest, Roger Kuhrt. His son Gordy is 6 and on the spectrum. He's also adopted, and so we're going to talk about kind of both the process of adoption and diagnosing autism and raising kids, and also how the journey is actually kind of similar to the Lord of the Rings, which is very actually it fits great with this show, so I love it. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah, great to have you. I think you're doing amazing work. I mean, one, adopting, and then two, kind of taking on that role of autism dad is very admirable. So well done.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Gordy, kind of like maybe just the adoption process, and then kind of how you found out that he's autistic.
Yeah, sure. So Gordy, he's adopted from South Korea. And it was really interesting because the agency we used, they gave us a timeline, how long we can expect the whole process to take. And they were absolutely 100% correct. And like each stage of the adoption was met what they said it was going to happen. And so when we got to the final stages of the adoption, we had to go to South Korea twice. And our first trip was Friday, March 13th, 2020, the day before the US shut down for COVID. And like Korea had already been going through it. So it was pretty crazy. We ended up going out there for a week. We got to meet Gordy twice, and no one's out. There's no one in the streets just because of like COVID was going on. And when we left the airports, there's still people in the airports and whatnot, still traveling. We come back, there's no one around at all. It was, it's like a ghost town in an airport. So we finished the first visit, and then we ended up going back in the middle of May. And at that point, COVID's in spreading out through the US, and it was receding in Korea. So they were making anyone coming into Korea quarantine for 2 weeks before you could go around. And our agency told us at that point they had a couple who was out there finishing up their adoption, and they are quarantining together in a hotel. And we were like, okay, let's do it. So we book our flight, we go out there, and it's kind of the thing where, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And so when we flew out of Detroit, we get, to our terminal, and they tell us, all right, download this app. It's what you're going to use when you quarantine. Okay. So we download it. We get to Seoul, and there's a sign on there. If you downloaded this app, delete it, download this other app. And we had to go ahead. So we do that. And you have to put in like where you're going to be quarantining. Well, we were going to quarantine through the government. And, there's always like a language barrier. And the person we're talking to says, you can't come into Korea.
Stopper.
Yeah, exactly. And so we start to panic and whatnot. And eventually someone else who could speak English a little bit better says, all right, put this address in to get through the app. We get through, and we get to the next section, which is customs. And the person we talked to is like, all right, who is going to verify you're coming in? And we're like, what? And he's like, you can't come into Korea. So luckily we were able to call our agency in the US. They reached out to someone at the agency in Korea. They called me. I handed the phone to the person in customs, and we were allowed to go in. They had us do like a COVID test and whatnot. We ended up getting out to the hotel to do our quarantine for 2 weeks. We get to the hotel and they say, if you downloaded this second app, delete it, re-download the first app. So we do that. We go through the process. We get to where, we're paying for our hotel room, and then they tell us we have to quarantine separately for the 2 weeks.
Separately from your wife?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, luckily, like my wife is pretty smart, and we had split up. Like we brought food with us because we didn't know what was going to
Oh,
happen. So we split it up evenly. She had the tablet, I had the laptop, and as horrible as it was, we got through the 2 weeks, and then they lined up these buses. We had to figure out what bus to go on, and then they just dropped us in the middle of Seoul. And
wow.
it
That's just
yeah, we had to find our way to the hotel. Like the nice thing is my wife, she had decided to write the address in Korean for the hotel on like a whole bunch of papers, and I just handed it to the taxi guy, and he brought us to the hotel. And then the next day we got Gordy. We ended up being there about 4 days, and then we flew home. It's a 15-hour
mhm.
flight. Like it's a miracle. Like, no, he didn't have any tantrums or anything, didn't cry, didn't scream
Mhm.
anything. He did the whole 15-hour flight. So and then we got on, and then we flew from Detroit to Evansville, and we got home. And it was really nice because my parents came out. My mom stayed with us for 3 weeks to just kind of help us with that transition. My dad stayed for a couple days, but then he had to go back home. Um, and then we had like really, we have like really awesome neighbors, and they made these signs and put them in our lawn,
Wow.
and like wrote all this like encouraging messages on our driveway in chalk. They ended up setting up like a food train for us, like after my mom left. So it was really, really nice. That whole beginning process of the adoption. So
Oh, that's amazing. It's always good to have all the community support, especially if it's
mm,
just your neighbors. I mean, that would never
yeah.
happen in California. Well, that's interesting that he slept on the way home too, because I think
Yeah.
when because I have two sons, Damien and Damien, he's autistic and he slept fantastic. Like
Mhm.
basically as soon as we got home from the hospital, like he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he sleeps through the night." Like, what's
Yeah.
everybody talking about? Oh, kids are hard. And that lasted for I think a year and a half before like the
Yeah.
autism showed up, and then it was much more difficult for several years, like
Yeah.
6 or 7 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Did Gordy continue to sleep well as a
N
baby?
no, so we got him, he was 20 months.
Oh, it's 20 months. Okay, so it was almost
Yeah,
two.
yeah, 20 months old. No, and actually the first like 6.5 months were pretty tough. It took about 4 months for him to like sleep through the night, but we were still having him nap, and the nap was a pretty big struggle until about 6.5 months in, and then he slept well for like 3 years, and
Oh, okay.
then uh and then in about October 2023, I don't we've been running into the sleeping problems like since then.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, I
but
still got some sleep though. That's actually not
yeah,
bad
yeah, exactly,
for a
exactly.
new
So
new kid.
yeah.
Now before the show, you kind of mentioned that there were some similar or some symptoms of adoption or kind of traits of kids who are adopted that kind of match the autism. What did that mean?
Yeah, so like the problem sleeping, very, very similar between, kids with autism and then, you know, uh kids who are adopted. Because, at this point, when Gordy was with us, we were the fourth different set of caregivers he has had
Oh, wow. Okay.
since, he was born. And so there's like trust issues, like from Gordy's perspective, it's I'm going to go to fall asleep. Who's going to be there when I wake up? You
Mhm.
know? So it took that 6.5 months for him to kind of get that trust. And it's very similar. Like a lot of kids who are adopted go through those issues.
Mhm.
And then you get, the normal tantrums and behaviors. He did a lot of head banging, biting, kicking, punching, all that stuff. And it's very similar between, kids with autism and kids who are adopted, just like seeing these behaviors. So like right away, like whenever he had any of these, I just automatically attributed it to being adopted. Because
Mhm.
that's the stuff you read in books and hear from other parents who have adopted. So in the very beginning, like autism really wasn't like anything that I thought he had. I just automatically assumed that it was just part of being adopted.
Mhm.
But then as he started getting older, um, he's probably after like three, he started like lining up cars
Oh, okay.
and then doing like the stemming and a little bit of like the hand flapping, not too much, but these are all things that kids with autism do, that you don't really see too much in like adopted kids. So then your focus kind of changes. Okay, and so now instead of just kind of dealing with the issues that we're going to be dealing with him being adopted, we're now dealing with adoption and autism. So
Oh, that's interesting. And I know you mentioned that your wife was the one that first suspected, which is it seems pretty common. I think
yeah, exactly.
I
I
was
know, I
I
know.
was a lot like you, where I was kind of like, my mom always said that my dad didn't speak early or he spoke later,
Yeah.
which I think was more attributed to he has some pretty loud sisters, and so that's how that worked. But I was kind of like,
Yeah.
well, maybe he's just slower. People are different. Maybe he's just developing slower than other kids. But we went through the same process. I think we got the official diagnosis around 3.5, but
Yeah.
I think she was convinced at like 18 months, and then I was convinced that around like probably 24 months was like, okay, this is a little different. How did that feel just when you kind of found out like, okay, it's not just adoption, like it is,
Yeah.
autism.
For us, um, relief, because
Okay.
now, it's kind of, we're a little bit, I think, different, than everything we've gone through is just a little bit different than I think, a lot of people who have kids with autism, like we suspected it at that point, and it just, unfortunately, it just takes forever to get
Hmm.
anywhere, to get
Yeah.
in, to get any type of, have anyone look at your child for any disability. So, at this point, we had both just kind of, we're like, oh, he has autism. Let's get this diagnosis and let's start going and
Hmm.
let's start treating it, and getting him into, we decided to do ABA therapy and getting him into that. So so it was kind of like a relief. We weren't surprised at all.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
that's very accepting too, where it's kind of like, all right, we're done. This is the situation. Let's go ahead and get to work. I think that's a
Yeah.
real
Yeah, I know. I know.
a
A little bit
positive way
different.
to. Well, no, sometimes it's I think it's easier for some people over others. It is hard when you
Mm.
have like that vision, right? Like, okay, this is how
Yeah.
it's gonna,
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's when you kind of talked about the Lord of the Rings, where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
here's our plan, and it's
Yeah.
like doesn't
Where we
always
going?
go. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know
Exactly.
quite how you're going to get there. But why don't we talk about that? Kind of, you're a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Yep.
Kind of your comparison between the autism journey or maybe just fatherhood and the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said before, about halfway through the first movie is when they have this meeting of the fellowship. And so they're all trying to come up with a plan to destroy the ring. And they know that they're going to be going out to Mordor to try and destroy it. And then all of a sudden at the end of the meeting, all the other hobbits show up that were with Frodo, and Pippin, speaks last, and he's saying, "All right, this is a fellowship," and he's kind of describing what they're doing, and then he's like, "Where are we going?" And it's kind of like the same with it because, I think the hobbits were thinking they were going to go back home
Mm.
that now that they had delivered the ring, and instead now they're going on this huge, dangerous journey. And it's kind of the same thing, because a lot of, I would guess a lot of people, they kind of have this path set in mind when you become a parent, of how things are going to go, what you're going to do, how your kid's going to be. And you don't realize that, where are we going? Oh, we're going to Mount Autism. And then kind of the adventure that you're about to go on.
No, and I love that. And I think the only difference is it's kind of like, and this is where you live now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
the whole thing is kind of your home because I think,
Mhm.
for us, it's always a new objective. It has slowed
Yeah.
down a little bit now that my son's 12 and we've been going through this for quite a few
Yeah.
years now. But once you kind of accept it, like, okay, this is the adventure and there is no destination per se. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
maybe an objective, and that shifts as well because when we
Mhm.
first start going, you kind of go through the cycle of like, okay, well, he's different, than the normal path, and we're gonna have to figure it out. But
Yeah.
maybe he'll still get there. It'll just be a little bit later, and then you kind of get
Yeah.
more like, okay, well, maybe it's like a normal path. Like he's never gonna get to the normal path, and
Yeah.
so then we
Yeah.
take a step
Exactly.
back.
Exactly.
And then we kind of ended up like, okay, he's gonna live with us forever, and we'll see how it goes from here. But this is kind of just our situation,
Yeah.
and I think that's still developing for you because I know you said that he is enrolled in kindergarten, which is awesome,
Yes.
and he's doing the ABA therapy.
Yeah.
How's the let's talk about kindergarten. Like, how's that been going?
It's been going nice. So I'll kind of back up and talk about like his education.
Hmm.
Um, because so and it actually started like real early. When we brought him in to see his pediatrician, after we first got him, um, obviously his speech, like he didn't speak English at all, so he was behind speaking as soon as he got to the US. So, um, each and I believe each state in Indiana they call it the First Steps program.
Mm.
And if you have a child who is delayed in any area, you can have them you can get therapy for them. But you have to go through your pediatrician to do it. So we went ahead. She's like, he's speech delayed. Let's get him checked out. And so we had two therapists. I think it was an occupational therapist. I think it was two occupational therapists come out,
Mm.
and they just evaluated Gordy, and then he was approved for speech therapy,
Hmm.
and then we started with a developmental therapist, and that moved to a speech therapist, and he got that till he was 3 years old.
Wow.
And they would come to our house and once a week for one was a half hour, the other one was an hour, and it was really nice because we had someone helping us out with them. And then when he aged out at 3, um, we have a developmental preschool here,
Mm.
and that was nice because then he started his schooling, and he did that for a little bit over 2 years until we got the autism diagnosis, and then we switched him to ABA, and then he did that full time until this school year. So it's nice. Yeah. And then, now we're plugged back into the school system, and it's really, really nice. You can see, like, we see like the benefits that ABA gives him, but
Mhm.
also the benefits that the school gives him.
Nice.
Uh, because when he left the developmental preschool, he still was not really talking
Mm.
that much. Could repeat things that you say to him, and like if he wanted something, he would just say the word, like if he wanted pizza, he
Just say
pizza.
pizza.
Yeah, exactly. When we got him into ABA, he really started to develop speaking wise because he was around a whole bunch of kids, and not all of them were like him. Some of them had more speaking abilities, so he was able to kind of develop that. And now with going back to kindergarten, he is also around like neurotypical kids
Mm.
and can hear them talk and how they talk. And he has started to kind of like grasp onto that. Like a really good example of this is when like if he would see a friend, we would tell him, say, Gordy, say hi to so and so. And he would say, hi, Gordy.
Uh,
Uh, so not exactly, not what we wanted him to say. But now if he sees a friend, he will say hi and the friend's name. And that's
Excellent.
just, being around neurotypical kids at kindergarten. And it's just been really, really nice.
That's amazing. Did you see, because I know you mentioned that the head banging and the biting,
Mhm.
did that improve with ABA or is that
Yeah,
ongoing?
yeah, and that was like really, really nice. And yeah, as he started going, because he was still doing the head banging at ABA, when he would have like his different tantrums. But they don't even track it anymore because
Mm.
he doesn't do it. At home with us, like he only really does it when he is super, super upset.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, now that's kind of like gone away, and that I think really happened with like ABA, with him going to ABA and kind of learning those like coping skills.
Oh, that's amazing. And the ABA, is that like 3 hours or what's the schedule
Uh,
like?
yeah, so when he was going full time, it's 40 hours. It's
Oh,
Monday
nice.
through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30.
Mm.
Now what happens is and the kindergarten is really, really nice because he is in the autism classroom and he qualifies for the special ed bus. And so there is a bus that goes to each kid's house and they pick them up at our house. So
Wow.
instead of going down to like the end of the street to meet at, down there, they come and pick him up at our house and drive him. And then I go at like noon, and then I pick him up and I drive him, and then he does ABA from 12:30 to 4:30.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's
Yeah.
wow, that's a long day for any
Yeah, it
kid.
is. It is. It is. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, it's so cool that you've done a couple of the occupational therapy and then you found the ABA and you found that
Yeah.
pretty early because a lot of time, I mean, for us,
Hmm.
like I think it was we tried a whole bunch of stuff and then we ended
Hmm.
up with like, okay, ABA is the best fit given his
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
specifically. But that's
Yeah.
amazing that you figured out so much already.
Yeah, yeah. And it was nice. So when he was doing preschool, we were also doing like speech and OT at Easter
Mm.
Seals. And that was like really, really helpful as well. And then once he started ABA, there's just no time.
Yeah.
When he was going full time, he's going to be too tired, and two, they're not open when he's done with ABA. So we did stop. We are hoping like next school year that he'll go to school full time. And then if that happens, then we're gonna try and get him back into Easter Seals to just continue with the speech and the OT.
Nice. Well, that sounds like you guys got a good schedule. You've already been through a lot just
Yeah.
to get him in the first
Yeah.
place. That's amazing that the whole 2020 thing, you hear that, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
month specifically because it was, that was
Yeah.
tough because
Crazy.
I think we were already in ABA therapy at that, and then they cut it off because it was just like, oh, you
Hmm.
could do it over Zoom. It's like, you can't do
Oh yeah.
Zoom.
No, you can't. You can't.
It doesn't work.
No.
Now I do have a few questions for you you, just as an autism dad. It's kind of a new thing. I'm going to try out with you and
Okay.
see how it goes. Just a few questions about your experiences as autism dadhood.
Sure.
So number one, what's your kid's funniest non-negotiable routine or obsession? Like
Yeah.
something that he can't live without.
So uh, I bring a red Bissell in the car.
Oh,
And when I go and pick him up from school, I get him in the car. I go to my trunk, I take the Bissell vacuum out, and I give it to him. And
oh,
he
okay, vacuum.
he rides in the car with a vacuum.
Does he turn it on?
No, no, he just
No,
wants to hold it.
just
Yeah,
has to
he
hold.
just wants to hold it. Yeah, he is like and he can vacuum. Like honestly, like I've been thinking about just going around to the neighbors and just letting him vacuum their houses.
Oh,
He loves
that's
vacuuming.
actually.
He loves it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So does he vacuum at your house a lot?
Yeah, 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 yeah. He's and he will really get into it. Like if you watch like curling, that's kind of like his arm movements. He's just
Oh,
like
really? Just
really,
like
yeah, just
steady.
back and forth, back. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. That's a good one. Yeah, a lot of times you're like,
Yeah,
I'll have like a plate or a straw, something like
yeah,
that. But that's
yeah,
that's a good one. A vacuum. Totally
yeah,
unexpected. I was like, oh, what's he gonna say?
yeah, yeah.
All right, let's do another one. Could you describe your parenting style using only movie titles?
Oh, oh
Because you already said Lord of
man.
the Rings, so I think
Yeah,
I don't know. That's
I
a
know. That
parenting
would have been
style.
that. Yeah, I know. Man, that is a good one. Uh, maybe like Star Wars, like
Oh,
it's just
okay.
another grand adventure.
Escape
I would say,
and
you just,
reestablish.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's a good one. I like that. That's you can get a whole bunch of stuff out of there.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Which autism-related meltdown have you experienced in public that now seems hilarious in hindsight? If you've ever had one of those.
Oh, oh man. Uh, uh, so like another thing is like he loves washers and dryers.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, yeah. And so like one of the stores we go to on the weekend is Best Buy. And
Oh.
like he loves just going and turning them on, turning them off, and opening the doors, closing the doors. And one day like we had to leave. And he did not want to leave the washers and the dryers. And screamed so loudly, like
Oh.
everyone in the store heard him, and yeah, he just wanted to keep playing with the washers and the dryers.
Oh. How did you get him out? Just
Oh, it was pick up and run.
pick up and
Yeah,
run.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It
okay,
was
you're
one of
still
like
you
I
can
can
still
still
do
pick him
that.
up at this point. Yeah, yeah. It's the pick up and run.
Oh no, that's good. We used to plan all of our events where it's like, okay, if he is on the ground and we have to get him out, like, can we make it to the car? And that was
Yeah, exactly,
plan things out
exactly.
like that. So that's yeah, no, not
Hmm.
not unusual. All right, let's
Yeah.
do one more. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found hidden in your house by Gordy, if
Oh
that's ever
yeah.
happened?
Oh. Um. Yeah. Like another thing is like we have like Arlo security like cameras
Oh,
and
okay.
he got one, like and found it in his bed.
He's like, this is gonna go here now.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's pretty good. We still, we find stuff all the time, but
yeah,
I've actually we have this playroom for him, and I built like a box for underneath the couch because that's where he used to hide like food he was saving for later. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I,
yeah. And then, another that is very common with kids with adoption.
oh, really?
Or
Oh,
is
yeah. Okay,
the
where's it
food
gonna come
hoarding?
from?
Yeah. He
Ah,
Gordy's never had that just because he can kind of,
you
just
get whatever he
ask us and
wants.
we'll give him food. But yeah, like with adoption, that's very, very common.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's my son. He gets plenty of food all the time.
Yeah.
He'll
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Same with
"Oh,
Gordy. Gordy's the same way.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, we used to. Well, a couple times he came out and he's like eating a piece of chicken, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we haven't had chicken in like 3 nights. We need to,
Yeah, exactly,
to
exactly.
find out where the new hiding spot is." Well, that's so awesome. It sounds like you guys are making a ton of progress with Gordy. It's great that you found a good therapy already, and it sounds like Indiana has a pretty good program for helping you guys, kind of
Yes, yeah.
navigate. Which is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's a journey, just like you said, Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. It definitely
Unexpected.
is. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well,
Exactly.
actually, last question. If you were
Yeah.
a character, one of the characters as an autism dad, which one would you be?
Oh, man. Probably like Aragorn.
Oh, Aragorn. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's been through it, and he understands, the world and how things go. So yeah, yeah, him. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I was gonna say Sam. I was like, I think
Oh
Sam is
yeah, yeah. Here's
always
another good one. Yeah,
he's like
yeah.
the autism dad, like, all right, picking you up and going.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that was another good one. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, oh, thank you so much, Roger. Love hearing the story. It sounds like you guys put in the effort to
Hmm.
adopt Gordy and went through an adventure just to do that. And
Yeah.
then you've been going through this new adventure, but it sounds like you're doing a great job, making it
Thanks.
happen and getting the help early. And I think that's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was just super nice.
yeah, well, and it's if you talk to the professionals, it's just like get out there, like try it
Yeah.
and get going on the cycle and try not to, delay the acceptance of the situation.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just especially now because it just takes forever. And I know like it took us a year to get into Easter seals to get him diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
And I know now like it's like at least a year and a half. And it's
Oh,
just,
easy.
it's so like, my suggestion, get it out, if you suspect anything, start immediately, just
Yes.
have someone look at them just because the wait times are just, so long. So,
Yeah. No, and that's great advice. And I think
yeah.
it's, and just keep on going, keep on
Hmm.
trying. I think that's the main story I hear over and over again, where it's just like, that didn't work. Go
Yeah.
here, try it this way, and then go here and
Yeah,
try it that
exactly.
way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's totally worth it. I think
Oh yeah,
that's
definitely, definitely. And even if like, they say your child doesn't have this, you
uh,
know, you know, and I think
yeah.
yeah, and that's so important. So
No, it is peace of mind and really just direction for how you're going to get there. Just find the problem, fix it, and keep going.
exactly, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Roger, for coming on. Good luck with Gordy. I think you're doing a great job, and keep that vacuum.
Yeah, I know,
Don't
exactly.
lose the
Thank you so
vacuum.
much.
All right, this has been the Dads in Autismland podcast. If you want more stories from real autism dads, please tune in next time, and please subscribe if you haven't already.